It is outright a slaughter, enshrining the slaughter of image bearers of God in the state constitutions to the day of birth, rendering any legislative efforts we could do null and void. So I'm sounding the clarion call.
Yes.
Everyone needs to get involved in pro-life activism yesterday.
Yes. Hey, welcome back to the For Liberty and Justice podcast, where we're seeking to mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice. My name is Nate, and today we have the honor, we're at Reformation Conference Live, we have the honor of having AJ Hurley from the White Rose Resistance with us. Man, thank you. Thank you for being
my
here.
pleasure, brother. I'm so grateful, honored, stoked to be here, man. So
it's going to be fun. You guys are leading the way in the pro-life movement. And we as For Liberty and Justice and our church and our church network are so excited to partner with what y'all are doing. I want to talk to really believers today that they've seen the historic overturning of Roe v. Wade. Yeah. They watch this and they watch, many of them watch the church not celebrate it the way that we've been praying and interceding for over 50 years. And then some believers are frustrated because they wanted the celebration. Obviously, at our church, we went nuts celebrating. What a victory. But we want to know what's next for the pro-life movement. Yeah. So first, tell us a little bit about White Rose Resistance, and then we'll get into the topic.
So White Rose Resistance is really an organization. We could be involved with so many political efforts, efforts culturally. We understand that the primary thing that can change this is if the Church of Jesus Christ rises up, right? This is not merely a political movement. This is merely a spiritual, at its core, a spiritual movement. There's been 80 years of the sexual revolution that has ravaged America, and we're seeing the seeds of bad fruit, bad ideology spring forth, and now we're eating that fruit in transgenderism, homosexuality, soon to be pedophilia, abortion.
And they'll rename it MAPS, minor attracted people, to own the language when we know that it's child predators.
So by God's grace, we are the fastest growing pro-life organization in America right now. God has been doing amazing stuff. I knew God was doing something in me when I first heard Seth speak.
And that's Seth Gruber, if you're wondering.
We had been friends for actually a while, but I had never heard him speak. And God stirred. I didn't know what he was doing. And then a year later, I'm actually his coordinator for all of the nation for getting churches involved and activated in outreach. My heart is to get the church not talking about abortion, not, really dealing and wrestling with it, but actually out on the public square, ending abortion, changing hearts and minds. And that is really right now, after 50 years of bloodshed, the other side has evangelized and discipled the nation in violence. Yes. And so what we need to do is restore the family, reverse engineer the sexual revolution, and really evangelize the culture with the gospel of Christ, which is the only key, the only secret weapon to end demonic child sacrifice in all its manifestations.
I love that you call it what it is, which is demonic child sacrifice. Yes. For far too long, the church has used the language of culture rather than defining it in what you would say is a spiritual battle. I agree in spiritual terms of saying, no, this is sacrificing the next generation on the altar of convenience, on the altar of Baal, on the altar of Moloch. This is child sacrifice, and that's exactly what it is. So White Rose Resistance is such a powerful organization. I just watched your new documentary. Forgive me, what's the title?
1916 Project, the1916project.com.
It's unreal.
You can go check it out. You can see the teaser. You can actually sign your church up to screen it.
Beautiful. We just had them out to our church to screen it. It literally changed the hearts and minds of so many in our community, because what it does is it ties, I won't give away too much, but it ties the Nazi Revolution to what's going on with killing the unborn. So with that said, obviously y'all are on the forefront of the battle. I'm a lawmaker. We like to work with people like you because you understand the issues at a level that maybe we can't really define. Tell us what's next in the pro-life movement. What are our targets?
So, you know, I'm so glad, so happy that Roe v. Wade was overturned. A little quick tidbit on my story, how I even met Pastor Landon was he and I, so I was at the steps of spoke at the steps of the Supreme Court when Roe v. Wade, glorious day, got overturned. And I popped a champagne bottle at the step. It was wild. It was awesome. But I went to church the next day in DC at a church that will remain unnamed, but it was just crickets, man. And I went with such exuberant joy.
Almost felt like mourning.
Oh, dude. Oh, 100%. A longing to just, I thought there would be shouts of joy and triumphant dancing in the streets in the church of God. God does this miracle to overturn Roe v. Wade, and it's just crickets, just utter silence in the churches. And I got on the live stream. I literally walked out of church 3/4 of the way in, got on the live stream, and then saw that at the same exact time, Landon did his kind of viral thing that went, and then we connected. Like, I mean, that was just the beginning of God doing stuff. That was 2 years ago now, which is crazy. Almost today, in 2 days, it'll be the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. I'm so thankful that Roe v. Wade got overturned. Rejoice. However, there are some misconceptions about that. You know, so the Dobbs decision really said that the issue of regulating abortion has been returned to the people and their elected representatives, right? The 14th Amendment explicitly says that no person shall be robbed of life or liberty without due process of law, right? So, in my opinion, we have some conflicting ideas here, right? Because Dobbs is saying both the federal and the state governments have a say in whether a human being now can live or die based on a popular vote.
Crazy.
So total craziness, right? We can't enslave people if the state agrees by popular vote that we can enslave. Our fundamental rights are not up for grabs.
100%.
So ultimately, I think the long term is applying the 14th Amendment federally across that's the goal of the pro-life movement is 14th Amendment protections for the unborn child. But that does not mean that each state does not have a responsibility to end child sacrifice and to stand up for the rights of human beings. So right now, all politics is local. There's 11 states right now, 11 that are trying to enshrine the right to abortion to the day of birth in their state constitution.
All the way up to birthday. Wow.
To the day of birth. There's much propaganda and it's shrouded in a lot of demonic lies around that, but it is outright a slaughter, enshrining the slaughter of image bearers of God in the state constitutions to the day of birth, rendering any legislative efforts we could do null and void. So I'm sounding the clarion call. Everyone needs to get involved in pro-life activism yesterday, and we need to defeat these abortion amendments because it will be a bloodbath. And heaven forbid, I really pray that we do not mourn the day that Roe v. Wade got overturned, because you can't give unlicensed liberty and freedom to people who are not virtuous.
Correct.
So the law is the restraining of the immorality. That's the purpose of the law. And so the beauty is what could have been an opportunity to really do something substantial. It was, Roe v. Wade it was an egregious decision. The downside, the catch-22, the flip side of that is now that the unborn are in unprecedented danger.
We started a war, and it's a war worth fighting. But if we don't rise to the occasion, we will have failed those that we started the war with. We were on a call, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and we were talking about the different options that we had. Here in Texas, we've effectively outlawed abortions that are going on in the light at a clinic.
Yeah.
However, we're seeing a massive increase in medically induced abortions through the abortion pill. We're watching abortions that are happening off the books take place here. We're watching cities try to codify, hey, this is a abortion safe zone inside of our city. I mean, just it's crazy.
Yep.
And so the fight is still on in Texas, maybe not as much as it is in others, but looking at it, some of the discussion that we talked about was a potential federal ban. Now, to play devil's advocate, right? I remember I felt in my heart of like, well, is this a state's issue? But you brought up that 14th Amendment. And I think that's so valid to bring up. Also, the right to life is not a state's issue. That's not, no one gets to tell me from the state of Texas that my child can live or die. And so talk to about the potential, what would it take? And I know we're probably election cycles away from this, but I think it's important for us in the same way that those intercessors prayed for 50 years. What's the path towards a federal ban on abortion?
Well, it's interesting. In the near time, or the near ground here, there are several cases that could really restrain things. So what's interesting, at the end of the 19th century, there was Congress put a law on the books called the Comstock Act. And so there's actually the Comstock Act outlawed abortifacients, hormonal birth control, and pornography. The hormonal birth control and pornography were overturned and allowed, but actually abortifacients have never been overturned. And so there's a law called the Comstock law that is on the books, and there's actually a case that's working its way up through the Supreme Court right now, about to be heard, that would potentially challenge, and the Comstock could. So that's in the midterm, that's a potential avenue, and saying, hey, look, we already have this law on the books that outlaws the use of abortifacients with the mail system, with the interstate commerce. So that'll be a little bit interesting. But as you said, much cultural work needs to be done. We're not really, I mean, unfortunately, not. I'm not against using the law to protect children, even if the culture is not there. Because look, 2015, a Burgerfeld was crammed down our throats by when most of Americans were not for it. And look at the results. Law. So we always say politics is downstream from culture, but the other thing can be true too. Sometimes the law can do its job in legislating and in correcting the human heart, and actually being an educator, being that tutor that it was designed to be. So I will say the ultimate goal is a resolution, like through Congress, a piece of legislation. Not a resolution, a piece of legislation that would apply 14th Amendment protections to the unborn. Basically saying, look, we need to recognize what the courts should have already recognized all along, that just as Black people were persons way before the court granted them that by the 14th Amendment, the unborn children is the other type of ideology that is completely running a class of total murdered, victimized, enslaved people that are being lynched in the womb, and we need to liberate them also. Beautifully said.
You know, in the meantime, as we work towards a potential federal ban in the future, you've outlined federal ban is possible. And is constitutional, as well as we have to fight state by state while we're here. What are the practical steps? How do we get involved in White Rose Resistance? And how do we start a chapter or get involved? What does it look like at our local level for us to be in the fight?
Yeah, so if you want to get in the fight, email me at aj@thewhiterose.life, aj@thewhiterose.life. We are launching chapters all across America. We have 4 that have already launched or are in the process of launching this summer. Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and here at Mercy Culture.
You got it. We're in.
Yeah. And so that training, by the way, will be in the first weekend of October. I'll be doing the training and hands-on activism there. Southern California, in LA, Orange County area. And then also in Boise, Idaho. But we are also in the process of launching them all across the country. We're getting people involved. My heart is to get the church again to do 3 things, right? and you might not like this, you might love this, right? To inform, engage, and enrage, right?
Yes.
So inform could be the woman at the well, meets Jesus, goes back to her town, and just says, come meet a man that told me everything. Could this be the Messiah?
Yeah.
Engaging is the Paul at the Areopagus, talking to the chief priests and rulers of his age, arguing with the debaters and the philosophers, contending for the faith, contending for the good of the unborn child. But then the enragers are the John the Baptist, the Elijahs, the prophetic witness that is saying, look, you, like John the Baptist, you should not, it's not lawful for you to be, having sex with your brother's wife.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is a pagan Roman king. Whose law was he appealing to?
Yeah.
When he says it's not lawful, it's God's law.
Right.
And we need to bring that, because there's no such thing as objective justice without it. So that is my heart, and rally the troops on taking responsibility for your community, for righteousness, pleading the cause of the fatherless, and getting involved in the fight.
Beautiful. Well, here's what we need to do. For Liberty and Justice, we have to pray for AJ. We have to pray for Seth Gruber. We have to pray for White Rose Resistance. We're going to partner with them, and we would challenge you to partner with them as well. Look, it's one thing to talk about truth from the pulpit, which we need, and we tell our pastors and our partner pastors all the time, you've got to speak the truth, because we are the last line of defense for all of culture as the church. However, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing when we actually get involved in the fight for it. And so let's get involved in the fight.
I mean, the apostles it was said about them right in the books of Acts that when they came, it was either a revival broke out or a riot broke out, not because they were violent, but because the gospel carries with it ultimately conflict.
Yes.
Because it is a spiritual force against any type of evil. So it was literally said of the apostles, these guys who are turning the world upside down have come here to our city.
Yeah.
And so that's how it should be when the Church of Jesus Christ, of the only thing whom the gates of hell was promised not to prevail against, comes into conflict with the ideology of darkness.
We call that a holy disruption. We're so grateful that you are literally in the fight for a holy disruption. We're ready to partner with you. We're grateful for you. This is a For Liberty and Justice podcast where we mobilize the church, wake up the city, and take a stand for liberty and justice. Tune in for more. Get involved with White Rose Resistance. We're really excited to partner.